Oh yeah, Lightyear was a thing. It kind of just came out and then stopped being talked about. For being as daring of a project as it seemed on the surface, it really seemed to pale in expectations for what should have felt like some sort of Toy Story spin-off reboot. But nevertheless, I couldn't make a scene breakdown back when it actually released, but I sure as hell can now. So what's the scene that makes Lightyear? Is it the first reveal of the time leap? Is it the introduction of Socks the cat? Is it that one fight scene I really wanted to gush about months ago? No, I think that would be disingenuous to the title that's already clickbaity enough. There is a scene in this movie that very clearly changes the whole of Lightyear and flips the entire dynamic on its head. It's really one of the few talking points that actually lingers after the film is over. It's of course the reveal of the identity of Zurg, and it starts like this. No! Like any good exposition dump scene, always gotta start with a good old scream. I won't go too into context as the dialogue will be covering most of that for us later, but all you do need to know is this device teleports one to Zurg's ship. So that's what's going on here. And with him abducted at the last minute, his crew can do nothing but look on.
Buzz?
That drum roll there is such a classic technique, but really upping the suspense as we're led into the other side of the circumstance. Good score. And thus begins our mini action sequence, first establishing the lands before we see Lightyear in Zurg's clutches, in a dark space to highlight Zurg's evil red eyes. There's even a little growl in there to seem all the more ominous. And of course, Lightyear squirms his way out and counterattacks. But of course, it doesn't last long, and our first hint that Zurg is aware of Lightyear in a way he can't comprehend, expecting the attack and having a deflect for it. And of course, the power dynamic is pretty classically stark compositionally. Zurg is always showed as monstrously tall and high to the camera, though Lightyear isn't so crushed in height, usually shot almost at height level since he's still empowered as the strong hero of our story, just a little disadvantaged. And so, with a brief couple shots to wordlessly show the plan to exit to our audience, Buzz Lightyear does a Toy Story 2. I mean, that is an identical move that was adapted for the video game in Andy's universe, just hopefully without the same ending. And though it's not death, Lightyear is still stopped in his tracks with a tripping. And Zurg blockades his path. Buzz isn't getting out of this arena, and so it's time for dialogue.
What is this? Where are we? Who are you?
And as Zurg refuses to respond, the power dynamic becomes more stark as it's dominating now. Zurg stepping forwards, towering over Buzz, leaving him shot incredibly low down as an over-the-shoulder shot across Zurg. The red underlighting only adding to the villainous vibe more. Until we do get a response with...
Now that's the question.
And now immediately that dominating posture is meeting the middle. It's no coincidence that Zurg loses some of his height here as he's starting the steps of meeting in the middle with Buzz. Not to mention that red color palette is being blasted out with whites and blues now. Not quite so ominous of a set piece.
You look good, Buzz.
Revealed slowly through several blinding shots to silhouette the old guy in obscurity, as not even Toy Story veterans really know who he is. What are the chances they're gonna keep up the Star Wars parody lore from Toy Story 2 anyway?
I am your father.
Dad? Guess again.
Oh! I guess that's how they're gonna do it. Literally a cheeky wink to the audience as a reference to this moment from the original. Yeah, that's the only purpose of that slightly doofy line. Nonetheless, an old age Buzz. Probably the last thing any of us were really expected to see. It's certainly a twist, but lines up very nicely for this already established time travel movie. And so, suddenly, our big villain seems like a potential friend. And the composition reflects that, now showing the both of them on the same ground, even looking up to our Buzz now. Though one is still very lit up differently from the other, they're still different. And for those who don't get it yet, we have an exchange of dog tags. Each getting their own little lick in the score that suggests mystery and an elevating question as each one is revealed. How does that work? Asks the score, as their identities are confirmed to be the same. Not even showing faces in this shot, as that would be a distraction from the facts being addressed. And then we reconfirm it with...
Socks?
Hello, Buzz.
Still looking a tad evil with that eye, but it's more for age, and the voice is still equally friendly.
I don't understand.
Now, what actually follows is a completely separate scene, splitting the moment in half for the sake of pacing and storytelling, but I'm just gonna stitch these two moments together as they're practically the same scene. As we now come into what was actually quite a critique of the movie, a big ol' exposition dump. We're not gonna linger too crazy on the actual lines exchanged, but look into how the other filmmaking elements come together to help enunciate all the plot elements trying to be explained over this next minute.
You're not me, I'm me.
You're you now, but I'm you 50 years from now.
The characters are keeping in motion here, clearly walking to their next point of interest, and it keeps the audience more interested than just standing static over this debate, traversing hallways like the ones from Toy Story 2. Again, this time maybe with less spikes.
If you're me, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and...
1273.
And though all we're literally doing here is turning a corner into yet another identical hallway, minus the spikes, there's still some techniques going on here, as we stick to the same two shots, either walking towards or away from the camera, so that our Buzz always looks exposed whenever we see him speak, whilst old Buzz can continue to look away from the camera when he does, adding just that little bit of authority and power to him in composition alone. Nice. And a very classic bit here, obscuring this reveal so the audience can react to this information as quickly as Buzz does. A simple, family-friendly jump scare that you can even recognize isn't a threat from that missing calf it has. But here's some interesting information.
Robots can't quite say Buzz, so around here I'm just Zurg.
This is honestly a bit of a ham-fisted way to retcon the Zurg name, but hey, it's an attempt. Tactically missing out the Emperor part of his name there, I guess. But as old Buzz explains, our Buzz is out back eyeing up the thing before chasing up so he doesn't get left behind. Cute.
Don't worry about it. None of this is gonna matter.
And there's your cheeky, under-the-breath line of foreshadowing. None of this is gonna matter according to old Buzz, as his final plan will be to evaporate the entire timeline anyway.
Buzz,
Yes?
you have to explain it all to him.
And so, as we've had motion to keep us occupied and some eye candy to keep us going, only Socks here helps ground the situation by detouring us, and for the first time, old Buzz stops in his tracks and turns around. Perhaps quite thematic for his character in general to be so driven forward by his mission that he's stopped acknowledging the moments of the people around him. And even when he does, he's not that remorseful of getting ahead of himself. He thinks it's justified.
It's just exciting. You're finally here.
You're halfway through the video, so if you want to see more, subscribe. You can also become a member for cheap if you want to see some behind the scenes or get early access. Anyway,
See, I reached hyperspeed too.
and so it's flashback time with shots we have seen before earlier in the movie with a new animated ending.
No, that new commander was going to arrest me for stealing the XL-15.
So, what changed for the Buzz we experienced? Well, old Buzz arrived before he returned and had the base attacked so that they were trapped inside that bubble field that they were. Thus, the commander would never come out to arrest our Buzz in the first place. I saw some people getting hung up on how his time travel shenanigans made a difference, so there you are.
I'd found a way to get them home, and they didn't even care. So I escaped.
We had been seeing the home base getting more and more perturbed with Lightyear, although I like the idea that they were accidentally becoming Zurg, what with the robotic suits they started wearing. Still, it all lines up seeing these characters interact differently with what we already know of them.
Filled with technology you can't imagine. And that's when it dawned on me.
Well, you can see outright, this is Zurg's ship. He didn't build it, he just found it. Same hallways and all. The lighting here also bumped up on the bloom, as this super future seems more like a distant dream we can't properly perceive, before dissolving to white to make it all the more dreamy and abstract.
If we can use this crystal to go forward in time, why not use it to go back?
Something else the shots here do is add a very strong blurred vignette. You can't possibly understand this world, so you can't even see it in focus properly. Only the center of the frame, whatever Buzz is doing, can you recognize fully. And with one last beaming bloom, this time in rainbow colors for special effect, and stick in this same pose now for emotional effect as our Buzz comes to finally understand the situation.
This is a new now that's never been lived.
Wow, what a line. A new now that's never been lived. But now that we have the time travel logical sorted out, if you don't think too hard on it,
I'll explain later.
We can just continue the mission home.
And none of this will have ever happened. It's a good plan.
and so we reach our meeting point. After all these dynamics of height, direction, distractions, and blooms, now we finally see the two in a simple two-shot, both looking towards each other and both on equal grounds. Two Buzzes perfectly in sync for the first time. And so they move on, discussing the crystal being the next steps.
This is as far back in time as I could get. Come on, help me configure the engine.
Now in this new TARDIS arena, old Buzz is more lax, spinning around as he exposites in front of the path, giddy yet personal as his goals are finally within reach.
Is this based on the turnip?
Set it for reverse thrusters full.
Maybe old Buzz is being mystique here, or maybe this is another red flag of a character trait as he doesn't acknowledge Buzz's question, just bulldozing forwards with what needs to be done next.
Oh no, this is all, borrowed.
As was hinted at during the flash forward, and it's the first step to undermining this aged character, as he doesn't necessarily come from a place of knowledge, he's scheming and clearly making it up as he goes along. More room to debate his position and perspective. And a cool wide shot so we can highlight the work of some great Pixar 3D environment artists doing their thing.
She'll get to be a space ranger again, Buzz.
Yeah.
And there it is, the embodiment of Buzz's original goal, laid out in front of him, because they're on the same page here. Sure, it's all about getting back home, finish the mission, sweeping away his mistakes, but more than anything else, Buzz is a selfless person, and his biggest demon is his guilt for robbing the life and career away from Alicia Hawthorne. With this timeline reversal, she'll get to be a space ranger again. But this is storytelling, and if you've ever heard of the Harmon story circle before, you'll know the formula to a good plot point always has the hero striving for a goal, seemingly reaching it, and coming to the conclusion that it's not what they want at all after the adventure they've been through. Because this drastic change in plan makes perfect sense if you haven't been down to the ground so long like old Buzz here. But for our Buzz,
She won't have Izzy.
Who's Izzy?
that's a big difference. There is a stark non-overlapping between the two experiences of our two Buzzes. One can easily blip away the existence of a generation, he's already done it across centuries of time, but our Buzz has actually met them, gotten to know them, and has built a relationship with them. The scaled up plan with thick, broad paint strokes suddenly seems like unthinkable destruction when looking at the smaller details. And it's the wedge that'll come between our relativity twins.
We finished our mission. Hand me your crystal.
Now, subtly, the lighting has changed. Old Buzz cascaded in shadows again, making his serious facial features ominous again as he's ready to do potentially the unthinkable. Not to mention moving to obscuring his face more behind the console. It puts the audience on edge and has us turning against him as our Buzz is internally doing.
I don't know, maybe we should think about this.
And as old Buzz's opposite, our Buzz holds the crystal, so naturally it's illuminating his face. They're starting to separate compositionally as they are no longer on the same page like before.
She had a whole life down there.
What kind of life?
And again, it all comes down to debate and experience. Our Buzz is running off of assumptions and his interactions with a young Hawthorne, whilst our Buzz has the full story, or at least is ready to hear that she was happy regardless.
We're supposed to matter. You don't want to live like this, Buzz.
And there's the crux of it, an unhealthy dose of existential crisis. You matter if you make progress as a space ranger, not as a humble civilian, or in the case of old Buzz, never able to move on from your mistakes and living decades of guilt of what's happened, and striving endlessly, fruitlessly to try to clean up from your mistakes. This guilt has defined old Buzz, and he's running on the assumption that the same will happen to our Buzz too, because he's lived it already.
But you can finally let go of that, starting right now.
He's not really talking to Buzz anymore, he's talking to himself. Well, I mean, Buzz is himself, so I guess he always was talking to himself, but
I can.
But our Buzz is changed from his experiences and is ready to take on the more righteous path and move on from his mistakes as literally everyone else on this planet already has. He steps out of the spotlight and into the shadows as he makes his controversial plan. But as he walks away from the scene entirely,
You and me, we're not the same. I'm sorry.
he enters a new source of light, reaching a compositional path of enlightenment. And as for old Buzz, as for Zurg,
No, Buzz, I'm sorry.
his light fixture has him glowing in backlight since he's still the subject of the scene, but everything else has strong shadows, and some underlighting on his face, the classic ominous and evil shot. And from there, his backup plan is taken into action. Lighting intimidatingly like big medical blinding lights, they turn the giant robots into darkened silhouettes. With Lightyear half their size and posed from a high angle, they completely obscure him on the frame, and we use the established format of the doors to crush out the frame into darkness. Buzz, in all the elements of this interaction, is entrapped by the dominating force of these henchmen. And that was the scene that changed Lightyear. It's not the most visually impressive or even dialoguely interesting, it's an exposition dump. And yet there are all sorts of hidden filmmaking elements all working in conjunction to bring together the plot points in its most interesting form for what they're working with. And of course, from the story perspective, this is the turning point as we get our sort of twist villain and an understanding from their perspective. Buzz leaving, or not really leaving the scene, a different man to how he entered, or at least a little more quietly. But hey, at least he didn't have to deal with any spikes. For now, my name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.